Welcome back to Man vs. Machine. I am your host, Billy Muzio. With me today, one of my homies back in the house, Bradley Stalder, one of the OGs of the Fantasy Football Fanalist, one of my old podcast partners and co-hosts. He's also going to be joining Player Profiler team here in the near future. He also had a number one most accurate week inside the Fantasy Pros ranking contest in 2021. Also a every year Fantasy Pros ranker. Welcome to Man vs. Machine, Bradley. Excited to have you on, talk some projections here, and debate our tight ends and our quarterbacks.
Beep boop, beep boop. I'm ready. I guess I'm the machine for this one. Ready to roll. I'm happy to discuss quarterbacks and tight ends with you here, Billy, getting the band back together.
I'm the machine.
That's right. Bradley's the machine today, filling in for Bradley. I got to play that every single time Dario's here or not here. It happens every single show. We initially were just going to be talking about different projections, rankings, and then we realized Scott Fishbowl is right around the corner. What not a better time to tie in quarterbacks and tight ends into these projection and ranking discussion, because it's arguably the two most important positions inside of this format. We ran through and looked at the algorithm. We worked everything out, just released the Scott Fishbowl rankings over on the site at Player Profiler, all of our ranking subscriptions, so they can get those at the site. Use the little drop-down menu, select Scott Fishbowl, and you can see who number one is. Little secret, it's Travis Kelce. We ran through the projections, the numbers, and the tight end position is officially broken in Scott Fishbowl. There is, in general, PPR scoring across the board. First downs is 1 point for every first down in the league. On top of it, tight ends, Bradley, get an additional point for a first down and an additional point for a reception. So that being said, one catch for 10 yards on a first down, Bradley, for a tight end is 5 fantasy points. How many is Travis Kelce going to get? Is that like a 30-point average every week?
It's gotta be. I mean, I already put Travis Kelce's into the beep boop machine, the projections sheets, and he comes out just so much further ahead in merely half PPR, no extra bonuses, no nothing. He's tiers by himself. So I mean, we talk not only about scoring like fantasy points, but also positional scarcity. And Travis Kelce being so much further ahead of Mark Andrews or George Kittle or any of your other favorite tight ends that are not named Kelce, it's clear that Kelce is a strong consideration as the first overall pick in your Scott Fishbowl drafts.
I don't know if you've had a chance yet to look at the rankings. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, actually. When the algorithm first came out, I took a look at it and I said, oh, something's wrong. Why is Travis Kelce number one ahead of Josh Allen, ahead of Patrick Mahomes, ahead of Jalen Hurts? When you consider the quarter point per rushing score, I immediately thought Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen was going to be number one. I thought maybe a real argument could be made for Lamar Jackson. But no, when you look at the numbers, just across the top, pure projected fantasy points, Travis Kelce comes in at 580.7 inside of my projections. Josh Allen comes in at 596.8. Patrick Mahomes comes in at 586.4, and Jalen Hurts comes in at 555.9. So you might ask me, well, then why do you have Travis Kelce ranked at number one when Josh Allen has 16 more fantasy points than him and Patrick Mahomes has 6 more fantasy points than him? And it breaks down to replacement value. When you look at the tight ends, Mark Andrews comes in at 445. TJ Hawkinson comes in at almost 200 fantasy points below Travis Kelce. So 200 fantasy points, Bradley, from the tight end 3 to the tight end 1. And if you go all the way down to tight end number 7, which is Dallas Goedert, it almost doubles. So 2 Dallas Goederts is almost the same as Travis Kelce in this format.
I mean, 2 David Njoku's. I mean, 292. We're getting down to, this is once you get to tight end 7, 8, 12, it's all the same. But that's why we want to be drafting some Travis Kelce. I think that's the bull argument for drafting Kelce in this format. But heck, even in your tight end premiums on FFPC or anywhere else, like Kelce has that replacement value. But in particular, if you're not considering Kelce as one of the first picks overall, I think that that's a mistake in the Scott Fish Bowl.
Yeah, speaking of mistakes, I accidentally forgot it was third round reversal. So I picked my spot at pick 101, thinking that I was going to lock in a top tier quarterback and come back down and double tap on the 2-3 turn. Nope, forgot it was 3RR. Then I was immediately regretting my decision. And then when the algorithm came in, I saw Travis Kelce. I was like, let's fucking go. It worked out because that's like we just said. This is for Jelani Woods. This is for Hayden Hursts. This is for Cade Ottens. Like,
see, now I'm regretting choosing the 112. See, I selected the 12th spot because it was third round reversal. I was like, well, I'm getting 3 top 25 picks in this draft. Yes, I'm going to go that way. But, seeing just the differential that Kelce makes, I'm feeling some regret myself in that selection.
Well, let's continue on with the tight end talk. We're going to be discussing our most significant differences in our player rankings. We're going to be focusing on tight end today. We're going to be focusing on quarterback as well. Then we will each sell the other person on our rankings, have healthy debates about it, and discuss why we have them ranked where we do. We will also be comparing these rankings to ECR, which is expert consensus ranking, to see where the rest of the field and the rest of the rankers inside of the industry also stand on these players. So it's not just two of your most favorite people in the industry giving our biased opinions. You also get the overall view of all of the analysts across the industry in this discussion so we can see where everyone stands. First player I want to talk about, Bradley. And you know what? I almost called you and canceled your invite when I saw you where you had this guy on side of your projections. Darren Waller comes in my projections as tight end 5. Bradley has him all the way down at tight end 11. 11, Bradley. You're going to have some explaining to do here. ECR is at tight end 7, so they're splitting the difference between the two of us. However, I would like to note it's closer to my projection. I know we have not had a complete season from Darren Waller since 2020. When he played 16 games. However, he did have 145 targets that year, 107 receptions, 1,196 receiving yards. 2021 only played 11 games. 2022 only played 9 games. However, even in those 9 games, he still finished as the tight end number 10 in fantasy points per game. So very valuable when he is on the field. He joins a New York Giants offense that is in a state of despair for their wide receiver core. We have some pretty ugly options here inside of this receiving core. You have Isaiah Hodgins, who's arguably the number 1, Paris Campbell, who's arguably the number 2, Sterling Shepard and Wandale Moore, who are racing back from both injuries, Darius Slayton, who is a deep threat, Jalen Hyatt, who's the new deep threat, or are they both sharing the deep threat role? And then you also have Jamison Crowder, who I don't expect to make the team, but is still currently on the team. How do you think this offense shakes up? You are, by the looks of it, not projecting Darren Waller to be the number 1 option inside of this passing offense, or attempt, I should say, the weapons inside the receiving core. Where do you have him ranked inside of this receiving core? What is his target share for you, and why are you so low on Darren Waller?
Well, it's actually that Darren Waller has the highest target share of any receiving option in this team. But that tells you how flat I think this New York Giants offense is going to be. I have him projected at a 15% target share. The next closest player is at 12%, and that's Darius Slayton. All of the other players are like in the 10%, the 11%, the 10.5%. I think that this Giants team is going to spread the ball around. I do believe that Darren Waller is going to be the number 1 receiving option, but I don't think that there's the type of ceiling that we want. Last year, the median target share, so the middle, we take out the bad games, we take out the good games, we just look at the middle performance for Darren Waller. His median target share last year was 16.7%. That's not like what we were seeing even in his dominant years. He's clearly approaching the age cliff. There are concerns there. So that the age concerns, the target share concerns, he's also going to be sharing the slot. Like 63% of his routes were run out of the slot last year. All the Giants did this offseason was sign slot receivers. So yes, I think that he's the best of them, but that just means he's also going to be pulled out to play on the outside. And we have questions about Daniel Jones being a good outside thrower. So I have concerns overall on the Darren Waller side. I think that they're going to spread the ball around. And it's clear that Brian Daboll does spread the ball around, because last year there were only 29 different performances from wide receivers, running backs, or tight ends where any of those players exceeded a 20% target share. So you were lucky to get one, maybe two players in a game last year with a 20+% target share. We're going to see some nice spike weeks from Darren Waller, sure, but I think the floor is a little scarier than what tight end 5 or tight end 7 could hold.
So correct me if I'm wrong here. 15, would you say 15.5% target share? That means
15%.
you have nobody projected for 100 targets in this offense. Is that
correct?
That right?
Yeah. Darren Waller, I have at 92 targets, 65 receptions.
92 targets, 65 receptions. Okay, that's closer than I thought. So we just have a different amount of passing volume, because I am for 19% target share, but that's only 105 total targets. So we just have a difference in total attempts for this offense.
Yes.
But when you talked about the amount of slot receivers that they added, yes, they added Jamison Crowder. Yes, they added Paris Campbell. They still have Wan'Dale Robinson. They still have Sterling Shepard. But if you combined every single one of these players, Crowder played 4 games last year. Wan'Dale Robinson played 6 games last year. Sterling Shepard played 3 games last year. We have not even close to 17 here, Bradley. Paris Campbell, for his first time in his career, played 17, but prior to that played 6 in 2 games. I think they keep adding all these damn slot receivers because they know that they might get 17 out of all 4 of them combined for the given season. We're probably expecting maybe a couple pup activities here between maybe Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe Sterling Shepard, right? At least IR for Wan'Dale Robinson to start the season off in a little bit slower pace. That being said, there's not a lot of other competition here. So Waller could easily still take some snaps and still work on the outside. For me, it's a simple volume game. I don't have everybody quite projected for 10%. So that's where you and I are a little different here. I have Waller for 19%. I have Hodgins for 15.5. I have Campbell for 14%. And then I have all those other guys kind of clustered between 6 and 8%, minus in Crowder, minus in Jamison. Well, I'll say that 10 times. Minus Jamison Crowder, who I have at 1%. And so I think when I look at it, for me, 105 targets from a tight end perspective, that's outstanding. We always would love to see a tight end who has the ability to be the number 1 inside of their offense or the number 2. For me, he's a clear-cut number 1. People will argue that Daboll does not use the tight end. And I think that you could say that Daboll has not had a tight end with the athleticism of Darren Waller. And we're already hearing news in camp that they are, just excited about what Darren Waller brings to this offense, what he's able to contribute. If the Saquon Barkley holdout gets any uglier, I think we could also pump up the numbers for the passing game as well. I'm not relying on that. I think a deal gets done, but something for me to consider as well when we're doing these projections. So I'm curious, what do you have him for total fantasy points?
I have it for half PPR. I have 134.4 half PPR fantasy points.
So 134.4. I'm at 146.7. So we're talking about less than 13 fantasy points. And the
less than 1 per game. We're very close. It's just, as you and I talked earlier, once you get outside of Kelce and Andrews, then it starts to get like the lines start to blur a little bit.
Yeah, it does. So nonetheless, total fantasy points, that just shows everybody that even though Bradley has him at 11, I have him at 5. We're still very close in total fantasy points. That's just how tight-knit these tight end groups can be inside of these projections. Nonetheless, let's move on. Evan Engram. Engram comes in as my tight end 18. This is one of those what the fuck moments, Bradley, because I saw this and saw Bradley has him as tight end 18. I'm at tight end 8. ECR has him at tight end 9. So we're on the Western Hemisphere. Bradley is on the Eastern Hemisphere when it comes to this projection. And I want to know why. What's going on here?
Well, I think that it begins with concerns with the target share once again. Just like I was concerned about Darren Waller in our previous segment, I'm concerned about Evan Engram because even last year, his median target share was 16.3. He was feast or famine. When he exploded, he hit massively. We remember that week 17 game where he put up 34 fantasy points and won people championships. I mean, this was a player who was a first round pick for the New York Giants way back when. Elite athleticism. Absolutely. I think a great best ball pick. I think the tight end 8, 9, 7 even. I don't mind him in the best ball streets at that point. But when we're talking season long, he could just absolutely produce duds week to week. And that's my concern is he has this huge upside, but scary downside in an offense that adds Calvin Ridley, who has over the last 2 seasons that he's played as a full-time role, 25% median target shares. So you add Ridley, you already have Zay Jones, who had a 20% target share last year. You have Christian Kirk, who had a 22% target share last year. I think the odd man out here, based on last year's target share, is Evan Engram. Like in the order of pecking, Engram, I still have at a 14% target share, 91 targets, 59 receptions. I think I have like 3 or 4 touchdowns, 600 yards. Like this is a player, once again, like we're probably very close on this, but I think there is like everyone is all in on the Evan Engram explosion game near the end of the season. That very much sits in your mind, but there are also games where he just zeroes out, and there were reasons why the Giants moved on from him because of the drops and the inefficiencies and the problems he had. So there is a bear case for Evan Engram, which is why like how this projection kind of works in.
All right, Bradley, I have a rebuttal here.
Go for it.
But before we get into the rebuttal, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The 2023 draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs, and that one dynamic for each team that you need to know when making decisions on draft day. And we added a bunch of features. I mean, individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you can take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, also brand new this year, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, do's, don'ts, tips, and what the more innovative fantasy commissioners are doing this year. That's presented by Trophy Smack. The whole package is presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the FFPC, Ray Garvin, Derek Brown, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. Playerprofiler.com/draft kit. Playerprofiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
Go get it. That draft kit is a beast. I didn't even know last year. I wasn't with Player Profiler last year. I'm blessed to be with them this year. I didn't even know you could expand the players last year and look at all of that data. And I told Matt, hey, didn't even know this existed. So we had to add the little drop-down arrows so people knew it was there. I'm like, how many people like me didn't even know that was there last year? I'm probably the only one. But it was there's so much information in there. It's really good to see. Theo and the team did a wonderful job with that. But back to Evan Engram, my rebuttal, Bradley.
I'm ready. Come on. Beat the machine. Come on.
One, I know I'm lower on Calvin Ridley than you are.
Yes.
And so I think that has a lot to do with it, right? The lazy analysis is he hasn't played football in a year and a half. That being said, it is still a new system. It's a new quarterback. It's a new team. There's still going to be some learning curves when it comes to him picking up and getting into speed with this offense. Number two, I think that this offense in general is going to take another step forward, just like they did last year. And if we continue to see them take steps forward and take more steps forward, we're going to continue to see them get more efficient. We're going to continue to see more opportunities, and we're going to continue to see more touchdowns and more times the chains are moving, which in turn more plays, which in turn more catches, which in turn more points. And I think that we're going to continue to see that here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's going to benefit everybody, not just Evan Engram. But when we take a look at Evan Engram just as himself, he had the 5th most routes run last year. And anytime I look at a receiver or if I look at a tight end, I want to see how much are they actually running on the field. And 2, are they participating inside of the route participation? So 5th most routes run as a tight end, route participation at 72.7%, which was top 17. So nothing to be like outstanding about, but still he's running routes. He's on the field. Number 2, I'd like to see, is he being targeted in short distance? Is he being targeted in deep distance? And he was the number 7th most targeted player tight end, I should say, down the field for deep targets. Again, back to the explosiveness that you mentioned, it's definitely there, which it correlates also with air yards. So he's number 8 in air yards. So I think that even if we do see a reduced amount of target share, I think the target rate itself could still be near, top 10, top 7 inside of the position. But ultimately, I think that we're going to see him have the opportunity, be able to get down the crease and have those big plays. So for me in 2023, and I hate to say this, he's definitely much more of a best ball appeal than he is for me for season long because of everything I just mentioned. But because
sounds like you just argued for me. Thank you, Billy. You made my point.
I did, but when it comes to the projection,
yeah,
I'm looking at total fantasy points, and those big plays for me still keep him inside the top 10 at the position because we're going to see some very explosive games out of him because this offense is going to be very high powered. I mean, I would argue that they are probably a top 5, top 6, top 7 offense in the league now with what they've built and how this offense has been developed, especially with the addition of Calvin Ridley. And so I think that it's going to open up opportunity. There's not going to be any double coverage on any of these, weapons. We also have a backfield that's going to keep the defenses honest. So I'm excited to see how they use them. And then the last thing I'd like to say is, even if we do see a reduced amount of opportunities, Evan Engram was the number 2 tight end in yards after the catch. I like my yak guys. Deebo Samuel is probably one of the most prized possessions inside this house with jerseys on the wall. So yards after the catch come very ring home for me, Bradley. Number 2 tight end in the league, 460 yards after the catch last year. So I think that even in a reduced capacity, we could see another big year from Evan Engram, just simply due to his athleticism and the efficiencies of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I think that the Jaguars are going to take a step forward here. I have Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Zay Jones all for over 120 targets. I have Evan Engram projected for 91. And I mean, he had 98 last year. So it's pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not that far off from what production he had last year. So it's just how the other tight ends ended up falling. But Evan Engram, I'm fine with drafting in best ball. I just am a little more worried in redraft.
All right, fair enough. When the bartender comes around, I want what he's drinking. That's what I want. Let's move along. Let's go to the next tight end, who we see things pretty damn similar. And I think this is the reason I want to talk about this, was because this tight end is going as tight end 15 on ECR. This particular tight end you have as tight end number 9. I have him as tight end number 10. So we're both very, very, very close here, and that is Tyler Higbee. So Tyler Higbee is, in my projections, the number 2 option for the Los Angeles Rams here in 2023. They no longer have Allen Robinson. They didn't really have him last year either, but the rest of this offense leaves a lot to be desired. When we talk about the weapons that they have in the passing game, they have Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson. From there, it gets pretty ugly. Tutu Atwell, Ben Skowronek, Puka Nacua. You can argue how the rest of those should shake up. I don't really want to partake in that argument. And then we have, of course, Tyler Higbee. And then the rest of the tight ends don't matter. And then inside the running back core, all we really have is Cam Akers, Kyron Williams. You could argue there's going to be a handful of target share there as well. And then, of course, they added Sony Michel this week, which is whipty F and do. I don't really care. So Tyler Higbee, I have projected for 15.5% target share of this offense, which is 87.4 targets. I have him for a 70% catch percentage. I have him at 61 receptions, 575 receiving yards, and 5.8 touchdowns. So pretty conservative, pretty modest. Still comes in as a tight end 1 in my rankings, going very late in best ball. Are we on the same page here?
I'm even more bullish on Tyler Higbee. I think tight end 9 is, I mean, tight end 15 is the ECR. I'm even more bullish than the target shares you mentioned. I have him at an 18% target share, 111 targets, 75 receptions, 760 receiving yards, about 5 touchdowns, just like you hit on. But as you said, there's no clear number 2 wide receiver in this offense. It could be Van Jefferson. It probably isn't Ben Skoranek, my boy, Fighting Irish Ben Skoranek. Tutu Atwell, that pick still befuddles me, like using a second-round pick. I am huge on Puka Nacua as a developmental dynasty piece and maybe a late-season Matthew Stafford stack in best ball, but not someone that I'm like running to redraft leagues and saying he needs to be a last-round pick. No. Tyler Higbee feasted last year, even with Kupp and Allen Robinson. So last year, Allen Robinson still was getting an 18 to 20% target share. Kupp was getting his 30% target shares from weeks 1 through 10. When Kupp was healthy, Higbee's median target share was 22%. That's with Kupp in the lineup. Because look, whatever happened, second half of the season with Kupp out, it was a mess, an absolute disaster without Stafford. But a consolidated target share, there is trust there. It's Tyler Higbee's season in 2023.
Oh man, I love to hear it. Love to hear it. I have been debating how the rest of this offense is going to shake up at the wide receiver position. I think we both agree that Higbee is the number 2. Tight ends aside for just a second, because I'm curious your opinion here. Who do you have as the number 3? Van Jefferson, and then is it Tutu Atwell for you?
No, I have Jefferson and then Skoranek still. Atwell's just so small. He's so small, and he needs the deep passes to get open, but Van Jefferson is your deep threat on that team. So he can't operate out of the slot because he doesn't get he's too small. And then he can't operate outside because there's already someone out there. I think that the play eventually is going to be Puka Nacua, but Tutu Atwell had some interesting things happen when A-Rob and Cooper Kupp were out, but there are just many concerns I have about Tutu Atwell. I'm not there.
Doesn't do it for you, huh?
Nope.
Small people need loving too, Bradley. It's just, I can't even say it with a straight face. All right, nonetheless, Hunter Henry is next on our list. Oh man, I can't even say it with a straight face, so I can't. Give me a second. Hunter Henry's next. You have him as tight end 13, Bradley. This one was a huge discrepancy in our projections. I'm at tight end 33, so 20 spots behind where you have Hunter Henry. ECR is at tight end 27. So 14 spots behind where you have Hunter Henry. I'm assuming you do not like Gesicki, who I have ranked ahead of Hunter Henry. Walk me through how you project this this tight end core to look. Walk me through how you project this wide receiver core to work and the pecking order for all the options.
Sure. So I have Hunter Henry at a 14% target share, 56 receptions, 81 targets. I think that this offense is a little bit better under Bill O'Brien. I mean, it can't get much worse under Matt Patricia, right? So I think that there's going to be a little bit more movement. What was unstated last year was Jonnu Smith, who played a pretty similar role to Hunter Henry, had a 10% target share. And that ate into a lot of Hunter Henry targets. Gesicki doesn't play the Hunter Henry position. He is a big tight end / wide receiver. He plays on the outside almost as much as Darren Waller, and he gets the Kyle Pitts types of targets. So in the pecking order, I do have Juju as the number 1 in target share. And then I've taken a shot on Tyquan Thornton. I think the second round pick is an interesting player. He's got speed to burn. I mean, how often do you have 4.28 speed? In the games that he played, he had double-digit target shares. I think that he'll be able to take the next step forward. But I'm not like flag planting on Tyquan Thornton. But I think that Hunter Henry probably falls into that third spot. Devontae Parker was an 11% target share type of guy last year. So I think that it falls target share wise, Juju, Tyquan Thornton, Hunter Henry in that order. It's still not a great offense from the wide receiver tight end side, but Ramondre Stevenson is a 98 target projected type of player. And I think that that's if there's a player on this New England offense that you want to be targeting, I think it's Ramondre Stevenson and then very late Hunter Henry.
So why don't you like Gesicki? I mean, we've seen that New England has always shown Miami how to utilize the players that they toss aside. He comes in very athletic. You talk about 95th percentile 40-yard dash, 96th percentile speed score, 99th percentile burst score, 98th percentile agility score, 100th percentile catch radius. When we look at the comped player on Player Profiler, it is Vernon Davis. Never been a massive target share guy. The highest we've seen is 111 targets. But again, the Dolphins, I think, severely misused him. We know that Bill Belichick likes to run 12 personnel. Gesicki, in my opinion, is far more athletic than Hunter Henry. And he's bigger than Hunter Henry in terms of 1 inch taller. But you still have Henry as the number 1 option as the tight end in tight end pecking order?
I do. And I said, earlier, they just don't play the same position. I think Gesicki maybe I'm a little low on Gesicki right now. I like Gesicki in best ball and I like Hunter Henry in best ball. I just think that Henry offers a higher floor. And, if you're taking late shots, I guess, Gesicki we've seen the spike weeks. But Hunter Henry is a player we've seen have top 10 seasons in the past as well. And an improved offense, median target shares are real nice. Like these are median projections. So the Gesicki's projections do include like the scarier floors that could absolute zero you. Now, if we use his 2021 stats, like Gesicki's median target share, he's closer to like 16, 17% target share. But that's also on an offense for Miami that didn't have Tyreek Hill and had like no one else outside of Jalen Waddle. So you could make the argument that Gesicki was not used well. I just also wonder what this offense could be an absolute mess too. Like in just trying to figure out, I mean, there's no player I have projected for 20% target share.
Yeah, I don't have a single player for 20% target share either. The number 1 I have as after the contract now is Devontae Parker, as gross as it sounds. But they pay the man $33 million. You have to at least, look and start adjusting the numbers. Juju still having knee issues is what it sounds like. And so we're not sure when he's going to be ready. And now learning a new playbook, getting on the offense, is he going to be dancing on TikTok or is he going to be, reading that playbook at night? We don't know. And so we look at the rest of this offense and I say it's very feasible that both Henry and Gesicki are going to be heavily involved in a 12 personnel package as they continue to run old school football, 12 personnel, Ramondre Stevenson, and focus on the defense. That's how I project this to look. Gesicki, I have as 13.5% target share, 73 targets, have him for 526 yards and 3.8 touchdowns. Nothing to really, get excited about. So, but it is higher than Hunter Henry, where Hunter Henry saw 11.5% target share last year, only saw a 16.4 target rate. And so I think with any competition at the position, we have to give him at least a slight decrease in efficiency, especially when
but they lost Jonnu Smith too. And as much as we like to hate on Jonnu, I know, but he actually got double-digit target share last year. Like that I think that's what was left off was Jonnu Smith was like just eating away in games where Jonnu played and Hunter Henry didn't, or vice versa. Like we saw them getting into the 18-20% target shares. So
yeah, that's when it's 1 on the field. Yeah, but right. When you have 2, right? We're both now in the 10s and 12s and 13%
Right.
on a week-to-week basis. I just think that Gesicki is a far more athletic and superior tight end than Jonnu Smith was, and fits this offense a little bit better in terms of what they're needing out of the position. I'm not crazy high on Gesicki by any means, because it still is the Patriots and there still is Mac Jones throwing the ball. Just a little surprised to see Hunter Henry as high as you did. Although I'm not here to tell you you're wrong, because tight end is a shit show. We never know what's going to happen.
Last year, my bias is in favor of Hunter Henry from our Fanalist days, Billy, though. So
I do. Yeah, you might have a little biasness over here. Next person I would like to talk about is one of my favorite tight ends this year, at least inside of drafts. He's climbing, so I'm starting to get priced out. I loved his price when it was in February and March. People didn't know what was happening here, and the public has figured it out now, and that is going to be Chigo. I'm not going to try to pronounce his entire name. There you go. Bradley will do it for you, because I can't do it. Bradley's always had much better pronunciation than I have had. He's also teaching students, so he has to, where I don't really care, and I'll just call him Chigo. But Chigo Onkonkwo, how did that go? Was
well
was
done.
That good?
Well done, Billy.
Solid
Get the applause. Get the applause roll in. There we go.
Chig Okonkwo comes in as my tight end 11, your tight end 15, ECR between the two of us at tight end 12. Why are you so low on Chigo?
Yeah, Chig Okonkwo feels like a trap. He's a trap this year. We think that the Tennessee offense, based on all of what the market is telling us, the Tennessee offense is going to be bad this year. We have Derrick Henry, who's back into the second. Sometimes he'll fall even to the third round in some drafts. We see he's falling. The next player is Treylon Burks in like round 7, and then it falls to Chig Okonkwo, right? So we expect this. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is not even being drafted. I looked at the underdog data, and Ryan Tannehill draft rate plus Will Levis draft rate is at 20%, Billy. They're only getting drafted 20% of the time, these quarterbacks. So we expect a bad offense.
That's actually higher than I thought.
Low pass volume. It's slow paced because of the running, because it's run first. Now, Chig, the reason why he's bumping up is because people like you are identifying some very interesting metrics, because he does have some really his PFF grades, his yards per route run in small samples were very good and very interesting. But I feel like he's a trap because he eclipsed 50% of snaps just twice, even when he emerged, even when it was clear that he was the second best receiving option on this team, and sometimes the best receiving option when Treylon Burks was out with the concussion issues and with all those other things happening. His median target share from week 12 on, so from the time he broke out, the median target share from week 12 to week 18 was 14.8%. That's just not going to get it done in an upside, in a bad offense. Even though he's getting some nice yardage, I feel like he's going to let people down this year, even though I would like him as a post type or like a sleeper, but he's getting pumped up too much. And that's my fear. As you mentioned at the beginning, he's just getting pumped up too much. And I feel like at ADP, he's a bit of a trap.
You know, his ADP has started to kind of cool down. I think he hit a ceiling because I saw him go in round 8, and I was like, man, I'm out at this point, right? It was getting too steep. I was getting him at round 11 and 12 in the beginning of the season. Started seeing that ADP come down slightly. I got him the beginning of round 9 the other night in FFPC draft, which is, of course, tight end premium, so everyone goes a little earlier. That being said, for me, it's a simple math game. We look at the overall total pass attempts in this offense, and this is a bottom 3 pass attempt offense, let's face it. So take the total volume with a grain of salt here, right? It's a clear and easy Treylon Burks, like you mentioned earlier, the clear cut number 1. I'd argue that there is another NFL caliber wide receiver on this team, because Chris Moore, Nick Westbrook-Akeen, Kyle Phillips, Chris Conley, Colton Dowell, who the hell is that? Don't do it for me. Chigo comes in.
Racy McMath doesn't do it for you, Billy. No. Racy McMath himself. Come on.
Yeah, not even on my sheet right here. So when I look at the overall competition, you can't help but say Chig Okonkwo is probably going to see 15, 16% of the target share. in this offense. And I think that would probably be a conservative number. I actually have him for 16.5, which is 83 targets, just to put in perspective for how low this offense attempts are. But 715 yards. He was very explosive last year, 14 yards per reception. 4.5 touchdowns is what I have him projected for. Thing I like about Chigo was his target rate. So yes, didn't have a lot of target share, but when he was on the field, he was targeted. 33.3% target rate, tight end 2 last year inside of the league. Didn't really have a lot of snap share, limited opportunities, still came in with the 20th most receiving yards at the position. Yards per target, number 2, 9.8. Yards per reception, 14.1. It was actually the highest for the position inside the league. Yards per route run, 3.26. Number 1 at the position inside the league. So where I'm getting at with this is these are, yes, they're not sustainable, but if we can even get 75, 80% of these outstanding metrics with some increased snaps, we're looking at a top 10 performance, at least top 12. And when he was contested on the catch, he still caught it. So contested catch rate, 62.5%, number 3 in the league. I like Chig Okonkwo. I like his upside. There's not a lot of downside with where he was going. They're starting to get a little riskier now at the downside, but with the opportunity he's going to have in this Tennessee Titans offense, I think there's a lot to like with Chigo.
Can I tell you a story? Can I tell you a story for a second? So there was a tight end 2 years ago that I was very in on. And this was a tight end who, coming out of that season, was number 6 in target rate, number 1 in catchable targets, number 6 in yards per route run, number 5 in average cushion. He was top 12 in fantasy points per route run. This was 2 years ago. And then the next year, I was all in on this tight end, just like chips in. I don't know if you remember this guy, but I was pounding the table for this tight end. Anthony Firkser, in the same Tennessee offense, just absolutely implodes the next year because of the small sample size in Tennessee. He was a player who finished top, 6 in yards per route run. He was top 12 in PFF receiving grade that year. And then the next year, it was a fluke. It was a fluke. And I think that Chig Okonkwo has much more of this. I'm afraid that he is also a fluke because there was no one else. I haven't projected for 14% target share. So I haven't gone like, zero, burn it to the ground. But I have fears about small sample size tight ends who weren't able to get it. Like, he wasn't able to push out Austin Hooper. He was just able to nudge him so we can work side by side. So I do have, I get that there's no one else in the wide receiver core. Maybe this is the bull argument for Treylon Burks, but I do have fears about Chig Okonkwo being able to return on the ADP that you're trying to draft him at.
You heard it here first on Man vs. Machine. Bradley Stalder saying Chig Okonkwo is much more Ferk Daddy than he is Mac Daddy.
There you go. You heard it here.
All right. Moving on to the quarterback position. We have to talk about Patrick Mahomes, Bradley. I had no intention of talking about Patrick Mahomes. And then I saw your ranking, and I was a little bit of a head scratcher here. I want to hear your reasoning why, because I do like a lot of quarterbacks in this, God tier and, S tier, so top tier, right? I think there's a lot of options here available, but Patrick Mahomes for you comes in as quarterback number 7, Bradley. 7. When we look at Patrick Mahomes, I don't even think he's finished outside the top 5 in his career, but Bradley's saying it's going to happen this year. I have him as quarterback 1. ECR has him as quarterback 1. Tell everybody, including me, Bradley, why Patrick Mahomes is going to finish the lowest he ever has in his career.
This is such a letdown because, here's the thing. I've been drafting Patrick Mahomes. I have nothing against him. If anything, the numbers come out pretty nice for him. I have him projected for almost 5,200 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns, a 13% rush share. But for the Kansas City Chiefs, a 13% rush share is only 56 rush attempts. Maybe he'll get 2, maybe he'll get 3, maybe he'll get 4 rushing touchdowns. Really, the quarterback 7 is less about, I'm out on Patrick Mahomes. It's just that there are other quarterbacks we should also be liking in this process. I like Justin Herbert this year. I like Lamar Jackson this year. I'll pull him up, but
Bradley, the man threw for 5,250 yards last year.
Oh, how dare I lower the projection by 100 yards over the course of a 17-game season.
He's finished as, going back to 2018, we will not count his rookie year because he played 1 game. 2018, quarterback 1. 2019, quarterback 6, because he played 14 games. 2020, quarterback 2. 2021, quarterback 5. 2022, quarterback 2. Where's 7 coming from?
Yeah, no, it's so close at that top tier. I get the fear. This is not me saying don't draft Patrick Mahomes. Okay, but let me play devil's advocate. Let me just dig in. Fine.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I could see Josh Allen being number 1 in your projections, or maybe Jalen Hurts.
Maybe Jalen Hurts was number 1 last year.
There's a lot of caveats to that. There's a lot of reasons why
Lamar Jackson was number 1 the year before.
Yeah, so we'll get to these quarterbacks. Maybe stick around. You'll see. That being said, for me, there's a massive point difference between Josh Allen, who's my number 2, and Jalen Hurts, and then to Joe Burrow. We're talking, for me, from Patrick Mahomes to Joe Burrow.
Okay, I think it is
almost
the rushing.
50 points.
It has to be the rushing, right? Because you have him for over 5,000 passing yards, right? You have him for more than 35 passing touchdowns, right? So it has to be the rushing differential that, like, I only have him for 56 rush attempts this
I do not have him for 5,000 passing yards, actually. I'm for 47.75.
Well, okay, then.
40 touchdowns. What do you have for touchdowns?
I have it 36.
So we have 4 touchdowns right there, which is the big one, right? So 30.
Last year, Mahomes led the NFL in touchdown rate. He's a candidate to do it.
No, he did not. Brock Purdy did, actually.
Well, in qualified, if you qualify games,
I'm qualifying 350 snaps, Bradley. Brock Purdy's number 1.
I'm slowly coming around to the Brock Purdy train, but
hey, let's go.
But here, okay, let's pivot for just a second and
Hold up. Can you tell me that again? You're slowly coming around to what?
To Brock Purdy.
Amen to that shit.
Let's go into, let's not galaxy brain this too much, but what if 34-year-old Travis Kelce goes from tight end 1 to tight end 6? Because Tony Gonzalez, when he was 35 years old, who was perennially the tight end 1 for years and years and years on the Chiefs and the Falcons, even at 35 years old, he was tight end 6. But let's say that Kelce doesn't fall off the cliff, but he comes back to being a human and still dominates, gets 120 targets. Is Mahomes going to access the same ceiling with the Rashee Rice, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore? Are you trusting the other parts of this offense to be able to step up if Kelce is not the answer this year?
I think the correct answer is it doesn't matter, because Patrick Mahomes is just that damn good. Last year, after losing Tyreek Hill, I downgraded him, thinking this offense is not going to be the same. He's losing a massive weapon, arguably the number 1 receiver inside the league. All he has is Travis Kelce. Juju Smith-Schuster at MVS are not going to get the job done. And so I discounted him last year, and I was wrong, right? He elevates every single player around him. So I think if he was forced in a situation where he did not have Travis Kelce, he would elevate Sky Moore. He would elevate Kadarius Toney. They'd probably use Richie James.
Oh, I love Richie James this year. Give me all Richie James.
They'd elevate Rashee Rice. Noah Gray is actually a decent tight end. And so I think the offense would continue. I mean, of course, losing Travis Kelce is going to be a major damper on things. But Patrick Mahomes in this offense is good enough to where he's going to continue to score fantasy points, and he's going to continue to put up massive numbers. I think, honestly, if they lost Travis Kelce, would it be injury or whatever it may be, they'd probably go out and trade for somebody like Zach Ertz and allow him to come in the second half of the season, coming off injury from Arizona, who
That's
has
a
no
nice
use
call.
for him, right? And so there's probably a piece where they would slide somebody in there,
Right.
whether it's trade or however it works. But I think that there would be other opportunities, and Patrick Mahomes is just that good to where we're going to see that player be elevated as well. And so I think for me, the correct answer is I think he could be throwing to, infants and monkeys, and he would still be the number one quarterback in the league because he's that damn good.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, my projection still indicates that he's exceptional. Almost 5,200 yards, 36 passing touchdowns. Look, it's just how the numbers worked out, I guess, for the other players is why he falls to 7, not because I'm out on Patrick Mahomes. Don't misconstrue me. Don't put it on a Twitter post and say, "Oh, Bradley, how dare you put why the hell are you putting Patrick Mahomes at quarterback 7?" It's just that there are also other quarterbacks that I really do like this year.
Bradley is smoking the Chiba when he's not on air.
Look,
right
it's
now.
legal here in Michigan. So.
All right. Talking about other quarterbacks, Dak Prescott is the next on our list. And Dak Prescott comes in our projections pretty similar again. Quarterback 10 for me, quarterback 7 for you. ECR is quarterback 9, but ADP, and this is why I brought him into the mix, because otherwise this is just too close for it to be discussed. But ADP has been discounting Dak Prescott severely. I got him in round 10, Bradley, 10-12 to be exact, in an FFPC best ball team. What's going on with Dak Prescott? Why is he being discounted so much inside of drafts? And tell the public why they're wrong, or why they are wrong passing him in drafts.
So the easy answer for why Dak Prescott is falling is because of Kellen Moore leaving. Like, we liked the offense, how it ran under Kellen Moore. But I mean, the Dallas Cowboys were 24th in pass rate last year. You think they're going to run more with just Tony Pollard? No, they're going to be passing because they've got Brandon Cooks. They went out and traded for Brandon Cooks. Michael Gallup is an extra year out of the ACL. There is data to suggest that players more than a year removed from the ACL tears, they're back to close to their normal selves. It was clear Michael Gallup was rushed out there last year. He was not himself. And so you've got CeeDee Lamb, who is arguably a top 5 wide receiver in the league. Some like him higher, some like him lower. I think 5 is in that conversation for CeeDee Lamb. So you've got Cooks, and Dalton Schultz is out of there. Get rid of the inefficient Dalton Schultz. I mean, we like him for target share. We like him for, base volume, but we've got more upside in this offense. We think that pass rate is going to be better. Dak Prescott also was dealing with injuries last year. I mean, he missed 4 or 5 games due to injury that year. And Prescott is perennially, a top tier upside quarterback over the last 3 years. We're talking Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, all of them within a similar tier of 84th percentile scores for upside. So I like Dak Prescott, especially not only because of all of these reasons that I mentioned, but if you're playing on underdog, week 17 is in a dome against the Detroit Lions. Like, it is the highest over-under already projected for week 17. When you are stacking or correlating and Dak is that cheap, let's go. Give me some Dak Prescott.
Bradley, when you talk about qualified quarterbacks and Brock Purdy meeting my qualifications, there was only one quarterback that was higher than him in red zone completion percentage. Do you know who that quarterback was?
Give me Dak Prescott, baby.
Dak Prescott's number 1 in the league in the red zone completion percentage. You hit the nail on the hammer. I always say this saying wrong. Is that right? Nail on the hammer. I always say hammer on the nail. Is that? I'm saying.
I'm just gonna let you roll with it, Billy.
Yeah, whatever the saying is, you hit it. And if you look at this offense passing more, people forget that Zeke, even though as dusted as he was, still had 231 rushing attempts last year, and he is out of the equation now, and we do not expect Tony Pollard to be able to handle all 230 of those plus what he was seeing last year. So unless they add another back, we're looking like we're going into the season with a combination of Deuce Vaughn, Malik Davis, right? It just gets uglier from there. And I don't think that any one of those
Ronald
backs,
Jones,
like I said, it gets uglier from there. I don't think any one of those are going to see 230 rushing attempts. And so this offense is probably going to take a shift. And I agree with you. We're going to see a pass heavier offense out of the Dallas Cowboys out of necessity, maybe not even want, but because they have to, because their weapons are in the passing game, because they have Lamb, because they have Brandon Cooks, because they have Michael Gallup, because they have a elite pass catcher in Tony Pollard. And so I agree with you. I think this is 7, 8, 9, 10, perfectly fine for Dak Prescott, but I'm seeing him go inside drafts now as quarterback 12, quarterback 13 at times. And I think that is far too low for Dak Prescott. I'll take the discount all day. I'll continue to take him in drafts. Thank you, everybody, for the money. I will cash in on it. Next up, I want to talk about is Justin Fields. You and I see things a little bit, again, more similar than the average consensus. He's been as low as quarterback 8 in my rankings. Right now, he's quarterback 7. He's quarterback 10 inside of your rankings. ECR has been adjusting down as well. He started the season as quarterback number 4. He's now ECR's quarterback number 6. I like the ranking, Bradley. Tell the public why you have him so low.
Well, this is not best ball. We're talking redraft in this conversation. In best ball, I think he has pathway to be the quarterback 1 overall pretty easily. However, best ball ignores the floor games, and the floor for Justin Fields is still pretty scary. We saw even when he was unleashed, quote unquote unleashed, we never saw a 30 pass attempt game from Justin Fields last year. The pass volume is going to be so low. Even if we pump up the pass attempts by 25%, it's not going to get to where we want it to for fantasy goodness. Yes, he's going to get some rushing, but we also saw the Bears go out and draft Rashawn Johnson, sign Donta Foreman. They still have Khalil Herbert to all rotate rushing shares in there. It's going to be an ugly split rushing share, but also, I mean, yes, we're going to see I believe the passing will improve, but I don't think it's going to get to, I don't think we're going to see 27 to 32 pass attempts for Justin Fields.
No,
and
no
that's where the public is getting this quarterback 6, quarterback 5 consensus. I'm just not there from a redraft perspective. He can offer week winning ceilings. Don't get me wrong. So it depends on the lens and the game of fantasy that you're playing. Like Justin Fields, I love his upside. Best ball, absolutely. But for redraft, you have to factor in the bear case. And the bear case for Justin Fields, no pun intended, is much scarier than what the consensus is leading on right now.
So another thing, I was doing some research. I'm going to be guest appearing on CBS tomorrow with Dave Richard, and he asked for one of my favorite stats of 2023. And this is, I guess, in continuation to the franchise of the Bears, but it also applies to 2023. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer in the franchise of the Bears. And so when people look at this and say he's going to take a massive step forward, I don't think this is the year that they break that non-4,000 tradition. And we know that Justin Fields was a run first quarterback last year. It was evident in his attempts, and it was evident inside of his rushing stats. Agree with everything you said. Everything they are signaling is saying they want Justin Fields to run less. They added DJ Moore. They added Rashawn Johnson. They added Donta Foreman. This is telling me that they want to take away his greatest strength, which is his rushing ability, to preserve his career as a quarterback for their franchise and have him take the next step forward as a passer. I agree with you. I do not think it's enough for him to be a top 5, top 6 option at his quarterback, simply relying on his arm. For some reason, his accuracy from college has not translated to the NFL. He's one of the most accurate passers in college, and now he comes into the NFL and he's seen 58.9% completion percentage in 2021, 60.4% last year. I I mean, when you compare this to his college stats, when he was seeing 69, 67, 70% completion percentage, you have to ask yourself, what happened? Right?
Well, Matt Nagy happened.
I was
That's what
about to
happened.
say, did Matt Nagy ruin his career?
I think so. I think at least deferred it.
There's a lot of concerns when it comes to Justin Fields as a passer because we just haven't seen it at the NFL level. Even in 16 or 15 games last year, he still only had 2,200 passing yards, 318 attempts. He had 1,100 rushing yards, so half the yardage on the ground, just in comparison to what he did as a passer. And so if you take away a fraction of that, he dips significantly inside the projections. He's continued to move down my numbers every single time I do projections and updates, just because I'm with you. I just don't see it happening for him, at least in 2023. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's going to take a lot for him to take that next step forward and surpass any rushing that he does lose inside of his numbers. Two more players. Let's move along to one of your favorites. Bradley has a little bit of biases here because he just left his team. Bradley saw his team go back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Now he's stuck with Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers joins the New York Jets, comes in Bradley's projections as quarterback 22. He said, F you, Rodgers. I'm sending you to the abyss where the Jets belong. I, on the other hand, I'm a little bit more optimistic as quarterback 13 inside of my projections because I'm not biased like Bradley is here with Aaron Rodgers. ECR is quarterback number 15. Everything aside, Bradley, is it biases, or do you have serious concerns about Aaron Rodgers as a Jet?
Serious concerns? No. I think this is great for the Jets. I think this is going to prove that Aaron Rodgers is not dust. But from a fantasy perspective, we have to be concerned that he just doesn't run anymore. There's just no ceiling. We saw Aaron Rodgers not be a top 10 quarterback almost any week last year. I know there was the thumb injury. He still had good top 12 peripheral metrics in almost every metric. I think he's going to hyper target Garrett Wilson. I'm big in on Garrett Wilson this year, but my concerns with Rodgers is that he's just not rushing. I mean, I've been projected for 21 total rushes. 21. That's not much. A 5% rush share. Like to contrast, Justin Fields I have projected for a 31% rush share, 6 times the amount, more than 6 times. So without having that rush share, he's missing a ceiling. And the ceiling simply isn't there without the rushing. I don't mind Rodgers to stack with Garrett Wilson late, or as if you want some like Browns, Jets in week 17, fine, be my guest. But I think that the concerns for me stem from just the rushing. I have him projected for 28 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, all about 4,000 passing yards.
What were the total rushing attempts again?
21.
No, we're only 9 different. That's not too far. And total passing yards again?
About 4,000.
Okay, I'm about there. What were touchdowns again?
28 touchdowns.
Okay, 3 touchdown difference. That's where we are again there. So for us, it's just going to be touchdown rate for our biggest difference. Yeah, I know Rodgers is definitely on the decline. I mean, he's been in the league since 2005, and we've seen his efficiencies, the last 2 years. This is
one of the slowest players in NFL history. Like over the last 15 years, play to play, it's the slowest of any quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a game manager, right? I think my concern with Rodgers, because when we talk about the overall ranking, I have him, where did I say, 13. So I was wrong. I have him ahead of ECR. I think it just breaks down to the efficiencies. I think that Garrett Wilson, for him, we look at the weapons he's not had in Green Bay. He actually has some weapons now. And I think that we might
You mean the same weapons of Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb?
Yeah. Green Bay doesn't give me any weapons. Goes to the Jets and says, get me all my same weapons. No, it's Aaron Rodgers, man.
Tyler Conklin, baby. That was what pushed him over the edge.
Yeah. For me, I think it breaks down to Breece Hall, right? I don't think that we're going to see 100% Breece Hall in the beginning of the season. There's no reason to rush him in. I know he's ahead of schedule. I know he's already running a straight line speed, but it's different to cut and have lateral agility. So I think that the first 2, 3, I used to say 4 to 6. I've been slowly adjusting this number back, but the first 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks still, Breece Hall is limited, probably on a snap count, probably not to full capacity. We probably see a little bit heavier pass volume during that time because they're not going to be relying on Israel Abanikanda and Michael Carter and Bam Knight, right? So yes, they'll be utilized, but they're not going to be running them 20 times a game. And so we also saw that Breece Hall was very, very effective inside the passing game. So when he is back, I think that Aaron Rodgers probably has some design plays to him as well in the dump offs. I think we might see some pretty creative plays in McCole Hardman for some yards after the catch. It's going to give him some extra yardage as well. And so ultimately, we're very similar across the board on all these numbers. Just breaks down to passing touchdowns for me. Just think about it. He can do a touchdown pass like this, right? Just that jet sweep to McCole Hardman. And that speed is something that the Jets have not had in quite some time. And so I think that Aaron Rodgers, for me, quarterback number 13, as I said, it's about right. Maybe slightly too high, but overall, I like what the Jets have done in building this team for Rodgers. Last quarterback we want to talk about is Tua, another name I can never pronounce, Bradley. Tua Tagovailoa. I've gotten better at this over the last couple of years. But comes in at your projections as quarterback number 19. Quarterback number 9 for me. Quarterback 11 for ECR. So question is yours based on total points, and are you expecting him to miss games, or is this a points per game projection, and are you just down on Tua as the quarterback?
Yeah, I think that Tua is an interesting case. Billy, our own playerprofiler.com. Do you know what Tua Tagovailoa's player profiler comp is?
Without looking, without cheating.
Without cheating.
Without looking, without cheating. Give me a minute.
As he's cheating, he's searching.
No, I'm
Beep,
not. I'm not
boop,
searching.
Beep, boop, beep, boop.
It's someone that's going to be able to run a little bit. Is it another lefty? Can you give me a clue?
No, it's not a lefty.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I don't even want to guess then. I was going to guess lefties.
I'll give you a clue. He was a former first overall pick.
It's either Baker or Darnold.
Yeah, it's Baker Mayfield.
Not a good comp, but
not a good comp is right. So my concern is that Tua actually isn't that good, but we saw some real nice spike weeks at the beginning of the season in some massive shootout games against defenses that were very bad. Like if you remember the Baltimore Ravens game, the game total was like 80 points between the Ravens and the Dolphins, and Tua threw for 6 touchdowns and hit Hill and Waddle, and it was just a huge, massive shootout. I think that it was also the beginning of, we're going to figure out Mike McDaniel. We're going to figure out his offense. He was the new fresh thing. I think he started to get figured out near the end of the season. And I don't think Tua is particularly good. Number one. Number two is my concerns about pace of play. Miami only ran 59.9 plays per game last season. They're not a fast pace of play as much as they have speed on the field and they have spike weeks, which is why I like Tua better in best ball. I like stacking him with Waddle. I like stacking him with Tyreek Hill. I like those in best ball, but in redraft, I think there are higher floor guys that can still give you some nice ceilings in game scenarios that are going to be better. I have concerns that Tua isn't very good, that he's being propped up. You talked about Patrick Mahomes elevating his pass catchers. I think it's the other way around in Miami. I think it's the pass catchers who are elevating Tua, and his floor can be very easily exposed. And I've not said one word about the injuries. This has nothing to do with his injuries. I just am concerned he's not very good overall, but he is propped up by the scheme, and he's propped up by the exceptional skilled players that are surrounding him. So your projection is for a full season? For a full season.
Wow. Man, I don't know, man. That's that one's tough. I mean, he was points per game last year because he only played 13 games, but in points per game last year, he was quarterback number 9. I think
Yeah, that was inflated by a couple big games.
But that's the thing. I mean, he has big playmakers. He has fast weapons. He's got Waddle. He has Tyreek Hill. So even if he is inflated by the players around him, he still has those players this year. There's one stat that contradicts at least what you said on Player Profiler, and it's money throws. And so for those who are asking themselves, what the fuck is a money throw? A money throw is a pass that requires, and I quote, exceptional skill or athleticism, as well as a critical throw executed in clutch moments. Number 2 in the league, Bradley. And so that is not a metric that is just made up. That is a real metric over at Player Profiler.
Look, I like the spike weeks for Tua, but the pace of play, he's not very good. I mean,
deep ball completion percentage, Bradley, number 1. Red zone completion percentage.
All he has to do is like throw it 20 yards to Tyreek Hill, take it to the house. Like, I think, as I said, he's
the throw itself is more than 20 yards, is what that is.
Okay.
So he's still number 1. The throw itself. Red zone completion percentage, number 2, if you include my precious Brock Purdy, who had 350 snaps.
Oh, and they're not going to rush with him at all, by the way, Billy.
Yeah, I would say the rushing, I projected his rushing stats way down.
Like, I have him for 32 rush attempts, and I feel that's too high. Like, you want to give this guy an ability to avoid contact. Like, that's what's going to limit his ceiling is – like you're balancing out, like he's got the passing ceiling absolutely with Hill and Waddle for sure. And you've got like, I don't know. I like Braxton Berrios as a last round selection, but like you're not going to let him rush. Leagues. You're not going to get any rushing touchdowns. You're not going to get any rushing yards from Tua. That's like the indirect concern about the injury, not that he's going to miss games.
I get the rushing concern. Like, I have him projected for 42 rushing attempts.
Yeah, I feel even my 32 is too high.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky part about his game is because he probably still wants to run, and they're probably telling him not to, but I still think he probably does. But I mean, real talk here, it could end his career. They said he contemplated retirement this offseason. Yep. And so that's a real concern. Concussions are a scary thing. And there's one thing about injuries is that it's not like one injury, you have a better chance of re-injuring. But when it comes to concussions, you do.
Because it's the brain, that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, some players, they don't have brains. And so we don't have to worry about concussions. But no, that's a bad joke. But we got Tua itself, I think, has the weapons around him that is going to succeed.
I think he's good in best ball. I just have serious concerns.
Oh, the best ball cop out. The best ball cop out.
Look, you brought me on, Billy.
Matt did the best ball cop out on Sunday too. I even record. I put it in like the outtakes. Even I got him admitting that I'll take him in best ball,
but not redraft. Yeah, Tua is an avoid for me in redraft.
All right, fair enough. I think you're a little low. I think he's got the weapons there. But to each their own. Well, Bradley, thank you for coming on. You've been very generous with your time. We're now at 1 hour and 12 minutes on the podcast. Why don't you tell everybody where to find you, what you're working on, and everything that's happening with Bradley Stalder?
Yeah, so bestballfantasy.com. I have the podcast that I've been doing on Tuesdays. Check out all of the work I previously done on Player Profiler. You guys have really been excellent about propping up the work I've been putting on your YouTube channel, but also the articles. I just put out an article on Rebuttal Underworld as to why Week 17 is even more important this year and how to do it right. Some things to be looking for in with regards to stacking and reasons why you should have a bring back, but also things to avoid. Like you shouldn't be doing this or this in your stacks. And so I really encourage you to check out that article as well. It's going to be really great. Yesterday I had King Cap, who won the BBM3 regular season on, and that was an awesome conversation. Check that out on the Player Profiler YouTube channel as well.
Thank you, Bradley, for coming on. For those, if you missed the earlier part, Bradley is going to be joining the Player Profiler team. That announcement will come out shortly. I'm excited for you to be on board, Bradley. I've always enjoyed working with you in our days as the fantasy football fanalist. Iron sharpens iron, my friend. We've always done a good job with that. For those who are looking for the next podcast, I will be back on Friday with First Class Fantasy at 10 a.m. Eastern. That is 10 a.m. Pacific. That's 1 o'clock Eastern. That is going to be with Hayden Winks from Underdog. We're going to be talking some Underdog with Theo and with Hayden. We're going to be breaking down a lot of goodness. Is that too many goodnesses? Too many goods there, Bradley?
Greatness.
A lot of greatness on Underdog.
Excited, right? Best ball, bestness.
Okay, we're getting silly here. We're getting silly. That's it, folks. We'll see you all back here on Friday. First Class Fantasy. Take care.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out playerprofiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.